Well, good morning and welcome to Mirador Television, broadcasting from East Sussex, a county in the UK, and Lewes, the county town of East Sussex, and the White Hart, the Premier Inn. No, there's a commercial chain called Premier Inn, is the first uh, inn in the county town. It's been here since the 1500s.
Wait, is this really the oldest? I didn't know that.
Well, it's I'm not sure that it is the oldest, but it's certainly very, very old.
Is it
And it's
is it the oldest still running hotel?
I think probably there are a couple in Rye that are very, very old. Um, in fact, Rye is quite interesting because it was occupied by the French during the 100 Years' War when we had well, we didn't like the French very much, and they didn't like us. We kept on raiding one another's coasts, and at that time, Rye, which now as the sea has receded, but in those days it was a port, and the French would take over. And I believe that the hotel there, I can't remember its name, it's very, very ancient, and it's got a French name, or it does have a French name from time to time. So but this one is certainly because Lewes was the key town, and this hotel has been here. It was a private house when it was built. It was built by the Pelhams, who behind us, just 100 yards behind us, is another Pelham house, and the family occupied it for almost 200 years, which is a bit of a record, I understand, for the same family to occupy the same house. Now it is a wedding venue. You can get everything there. You can even have some guests stay overnight. Um, I'm not sure that it's a pretty end to a very, very interesting hotel. The view from the back is stunning. It has got a Tom Paine room, and it is pretty ancient as well. There is a third one which is in mothballs at the moment, and that is and the name will come back to me in a minute, and just at the other end of the town, the Shelleys, and that is quite ancient too, but it is not a hotel. So this one is the only really hotel in the town. Um, so it stood the test of time. Yeah. And a very good morning. Who's it, Jane?
It's me. It's only me.
Now let us tell you about coming in here in the morning, because I come in and a wonderful Jane with a wonderful smile, and not only that, she got the fire going without any kindling this morning, and there it was, brilliantly lighting up the lounge, and what a wonderful place to come into work. I couldn't be luckier, I have to tell you. I really couldn't. Anyway, back from the good to the ugly. And it looks as if the Harry and the Royals are going to be at one another's throats. And the trouble with this sort of thing is, particularly if you transfer the rules of combat from Hollywood to Britain, or even anywhere else in Europe for that matter, is you better be very careful, because the rules are quite different. And the moment that Harry and Meghan start to shout abuse at the media and say that she was hounded by it, is you've got no chance, because then the media switches sides. It does not give anybody any chance, and it's not giving Harry a chance, and he should have known that. He is being very foolish and being driven by the glitter of American royalty, which is Hollywood. A very silly boy. He's a silly boy, and every time that he does something, it's as if he got no background whatsoever, or no common sense. Here we go. Right. So the Daily Mail is. Are you putting this up on the screen?
Yep.
Right. The Daily Mail: fury at Sussex's Netflix claim of the war on Meghan. You see, the war on Meghan. Now, Before we go any further, can anybody see me? I can't see who's. I'm a one-eyed Jack this morning because I've lost a lens in my spectacles. So I put them on, and I have to lean forward a little bit to reaction to the latest trailer for the Harry and Meghan series on Netflix. Leads some of Tuesday's papers. Fury at Sussex's, declares the Daily Mail, reporting that claims made in the new clip sparked a furious flashback. The trailer showed Prince Harry alleging leaks and planted stories had backed up by the royal family's hierarchy. Well, what he's saying is that they kept on feeding stuff that wasn't true to the papers.
Not surprised.
No.
Well, Meghan Markle, she always goes on about racism. It's constant, but she's like, if I didn't know Meghan Markle, if I didn't know who she was and I saw her, I would think, oh, maybe she's Spanish or Italian, because she isn't black. She's like a quarter black, and she's claimed racism towards her son, who's 1/16 black. It's just ridiculous, and I hate all this race stuff, but we have to talk about it because it's everywhere. It's in the mainstream constantly.
Oh yes, but I mean, with all due respect, I think that black people have not done themselves any favors by taking the knee and so on and so forth. What it does is it highlights what a few do. Generally speaking, I have to say, in the people that I know, the people in my family and so on and so forth, there's no racism whatsoever. We don't even think about it.
You were telling me you dated an
yes, when I was much younger, much younger, I had a girlfriend who was Chinese Jamaican, and she was gorgeous. She was absolutely beautiful, but her temperament was like Meghan's. Oh dear, 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 dear. So it didn't last for a long time. But no, I don't have a racist bone in my body. I really don't care. In fact, the strange thing is, because I've got lots of friends in so many different countries, but lots of friends here who are black, and I've never understood why they insist upon being called black instead of coloured, because there are various shades of black, aren't there?
It's not the approved thing.
I know, and of course the approved thing is by idiots who actually they want to foster racism, because then it gives them something to yell and scream about, instead of letting us all get on and love our neighbour no matter what colour they are. So I mean, there was an issue here with Bonfire where one of the societies used to black up
they still do.
Zulus.
Some of them still do. I've only ever seen blackface once in my life, in real life, and that was at Bonfire Night this year.
Really?
Yeah. I was shocked. I was like, "Whoa, never seen that before." Didn't particularly care too much,
but the fact of the matter is that they've been doing that for because it reflected basically what they've been doing. And then the Liberals sort of got, oh gosh, you can't do this, and that's just racist and so on and so forth. Most of those people in that Bonfire Society, I don't know them all, but I know some of them, and racist is the last charge I would make against them. But the funny thing is that I spent a considerable time in Nigeria, and I actually talked about this to them, and I told them and they in the heart of a country that was, if you like, a colony, and could easily take offence at some of the things that we did to them. I just do not understand it. I do not understand it. All I can say is I've stopped trying to understand it. All I can say is colour makes no difference to me. All I ask is that whoever is in charge of anything is competent. is able to do the job. And that's where it starts to go wrong, is because we start to get into ratios. We've got to have so many of this and so many of that and so many of the other. Nobody says, can they do the job? What we do is we pack all sorts of things, including Parliament and MPs and businesses and so on, and how many women should be in the board and how many black people and so on. So, well, we've stopped asking, can they do the job? And the fact is most of them can't bloody do the job. And that's why the country is in such a mess. We've got a whole bunch of people who are incapable of doing the job that they're appointed to, because they're there not because of their talent, but because of one of these ratios. And it really upsets me. It really upsets me because it's totally unnecessary. I don't care. We 650 MPs are all black. They can be all black and lesbian for all I care. Are they 650 people who can lead us? Because the 650 people we've got can't. And they are demonstrating that, and the country is in such a mess because they can't. I've never seen such weak government and people who are incapable of leadership. There. Now you know where I stand. Right, okay. The Daily Express. Give us a break. Axe parking charges to rescue shops. All-out war. Now Harry says the palace played dirty games. Oh dear, 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 dear. Harry, you naughty boy, you. How silly. I'm not saying that dirty games don't go on. Of course they do.
Hello, Kevin.
Oh, good morning, Kevin.
Morning.
I've got a job for you.
Yeah. They've got loads of work for me. I've been off for 10 days, so.
You got a problem? Hey, we'll fix it. It's terrific. Absolutely terrific. I'm just
putting your camera back in because it keeps freezing every so often. I have to get rid of the camera and re-put it in. So I'm just sort it out now.
Okay. Anyway, I'm trying to read things through one eye. The Sussex lies and videotape. That's from the Sun. The other thing that there's here is an interesting dilemma, which is it's headlining the sports pages, and sometimes, as indeed in the Sun, the general news pages, and that is Raheem Sterling, his wife, his fiance, and his children were at home in it's described as mansion. I imagine a very big house that he has as a footballer. And some armed gang tried to get in, and
whose house, sorry?
That's Raheem Sterling, one of the footballers, English footballers, and he came back from Qatar, and now is trying to decide whether he'll go back again. I'm not going to comment on whether he should go back or not. That is an individual choice, of course. What I will say is, it really, really bothers me that we are in this day and age still subject to armed gangs who target people with lots of money, and they try to break in and terrorize the families while trying to lift any money, jewels, anything else of value.
Yeah, that's the sort of thing that you would see when you were living over in Eastern Europe.
Yeah. Well, I have to say, when I was in Ukraine, it's the closest I've ever come to being murdered. I actually I was given a little apartment to stay in. This is in Lugansk, which is one of the areas where there's a lot of fighting going on at the moment. And it's also the town where they think that the rocket was fired that brought down the Malaysian airliner. It's an interesting place.
What? Really?
Yeah.
Oh.
But a man who's remained a very good friend and I had discovered this little restaurant where they'd got 65,000 types of vodka. And so we tried to work our way through them. And I got home at midnight, went into my flat. The next morning at about 6 o'clock, there was a hammering on the door, and it was the police. And the couple next door, in the apartment next door, had been murdered. And
For what reason? Did you
nobody knows whether it's political or whether they were just looking for, somewhere to. It could be that they were looking for me. I don't know, and they got the wrong apartment. But I came pretty close to being snuffed out, as it were, in that particular instance. So there we are. The main story again is Sussex lies and videotape. Image of press hounding Meghan. Is really media at Katie Price court? That's a different one, isn't it? Yeah. All right.
Was that the Star? Sorry. Was that the Star?
That was no. That was his son, I think. Yes, that was the son.
Yeah, I thought we had just gone through that. Sorry.
The Star is get the popcorn in, folks. And their royal shyness is to trash the royal family again on Thursday.
Royal shyness.
Bloke labels life with the firm's a dirty game. Oh dear, oh dear, oh dear. The press is having a field day. As I said at the beginning, if you really want to upset, and the rules of the games are very different in Hollywood and to the rules of the game here. If you really want to get the press against you, is charge it with being invasive into privacy, charge it with harassment, charge it with all sorts of things, and they are bound to lose any sympathy for you. Harry, you're an idiot. You really are. I never thought that I would have the courage to call a member of the royal family an idiot, but Harry, you're an idiot. And your wife is, she leads you by the nose, and I do know. I mean, let me put it this way. I do have my little ways of finding out what's going on in Buckhouse, or I did have. I don't use them much now, but there is no question is that Meghan wears the trousers in that family. Whatever she decides, Harry goes along with, and I think that she's been pulling the strings, and she doesn't know how. She simply doesn't know how. Throwing a tantrum is okay in the States. Throwing a tantrum here is nobody cares. Anyway,
yeah,
the Guardian.
Over here, it's just embarrassing.
Yeah, it is. I mean, the whole thing is embarrassing. But I have to say, I understand what Netflix are doing. It's the sort of thing that everybody will be glued to the screen. Yes. Okay. The Guardian doesn't go that route. It says the Prime Minister backs down on housing goals in the face of pressure from Tory MPs. So the tail is wagging the dog again, and the Prime Minister will back down on compulsory house building targets as he faces pressure from backbench Tory MPs. The Guardian says the move will prompt criticism that Rishi Sunak is putting party unity over the national interest, and that he is too weak to make an unruly conservative take on unruly conservative rebels. Somebody's got to take them on. I'm sorry, but these rebels, they don't like anything, and they stamp their little feet. And let's face it, Rishi Sunak is not the last or the first Prime Minister to give in to them. In fact, Theresa May, her administration became ungovernable because of the backbenchers in the House of Commons. And it was there is a marvelous scene towards the end of the movie about Lawrence of Arabia, where he tries to get them to all get together in a united council to keep the Western interests from Turkey, from Britain, from France, etc., out, and they all fall out like crazy, something or another. And that was what Theresa May's.
Well, can I just say, Theresa May? It's been 5 years since she was in power.
Right.
It's been 5 years.
And there's been an election. It hasn't changed. Well, it has changed in as much as I mean, she totally lost control. The prime minister's.
Did she lose control? I can't really remember. I wasn't very
Yeah.
in tune with politics. Then.
Yeah, she
Did
lost
she really
total
lose
control.
worse than Liz Truss?
Well,
Worse than Liz Truss?
well, Liz Truss never did have control.
Well, the funny thing is, her administration failed quicker than any others in history in Britain, and she was bragging. Well, for whatever reason, the Conservative Party were bragging that this is the most diverse cabinet that there's ever been, and there's no straight white men in the entire cabinet. Just saying. I'm sure it's just a coincidence.
Well, I know it wouldn't surprise me, because exactly what I said is picking people for talent is going out of the window. We don't. There are so many pressures for self-interest groups. Because if we can only get back to let's find people who can do the job.
I know. I don't understand why the Conservative Party are constantly going on about diversity. That's the left's job. That's Labour's job. Why is the Conservatives so worried about Labour's policies and implementing them themselves?
Well, I suppose what they think is that this is what the general public want.
It's not. Oh. Well, here's the problem. All the politicians are on Twitter constantly, right?
Yeah.
And they think, well, Twitter, a lot of young people are on here. That's the general public.
Yeah.
That's our next voting base.
Yeah, you're probably right. I mean, I don't really follow social media that much that it bothers me. But
let me just say, Twitter is a terrible social media platform. I am on it. I recently got unbanned thanks to Elon Musk. But they had a general amnesty, so anyone who was banned could get their account reinstated. So I got that reinstated. And I don't tweet anything. I just am there to watch it all burn. I'm just there to enjoy it collapse. I mean,
the thing that is the big bother, though, Max, is that we need governing. We need a strong government with policies that are worked out to the betterment of society. And what I've been saying for a long time is everybody's lost a sense of duty. It is all me, 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 me. And as long as we have that policies dictated to by me, 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 they're all going to be in complete and utter chaos.
Yeah, and can I just say about the policies? Obviously, social-wise, there's differences. But policy-wise, what is the difference between Labour and Conservative? There really isn't a huge difference.
Right now, there's not. I mean, they both. The Labour Party is tending towards the right of its beliefs, and the Conservative Party is tending towards the left. So there's only that much difference. But generally speaking, essentially, as I understand it, is Labour really would like to run the country with as much under its control as possible. It would like to take industry back. It'd like to take the railways back. It'd like to take the airlines back. It'd like to take everything that possible to come under state control. The Conservatives should be laissez-faire. In other words, let people get on to run it, and the less state interference, the better.
Yeah, that is true. The less state interference, the better. Can you name one government institution that works well?
No.
Besides, I would say probably the best government institution is maybe the post office. Royal Mail, that's fairly good.
It's not a government institution anymore.
Oh, is it not?
No, it's privatised.
No, okay, well, there is no government institution left that is any good, and making things run by the government, it's just gonna be hell.
Well, the fact of the matter is, the government shouldn't try to run business.
No,
It
they
shouldn't.
shouldn't.
Yeah.
That should be up to
So
the
that sets out
business
my
people,
stall.
businessmen.
Right, okay. The Daily Telegraph follows up on the same story. Sunak abandons housing targets. So that's out of the window. The Times. The rail union delivers more misery with a Christmas strike schedule.
Is
And
that sorry?
sorry?
Is that the Daily Telegraph?
No, no, it's the Times. But it also says 1 in 7 is denied a GP appointment. Now, there's another sector that has got itself into a whole mess of trouble. But then again, you see the NHS is in trouble. I always very quickly rush to defend the doctors and nurses. I mean, I've been in hospital, I don't know, 6 or 7 times, very briefly, over the last 2 years. And I'm always treated extremely well looked after. And great competence amongst the frontline staff. But the NHS itself, the bureaucracy, the non-participating medicine people, if you like, they are in a mess, as indeed most big organizations are at the moment. I mean, and it doesn't matter where you look. We keep on hearing how the CEOs vote themselves another couple of million onto their pay schedule, and the bonuses and so on and so forth. And oh yeah, this is a very tough job. Yeah, it is. But you don't get a bonus unless you can actually do it, and most of them can't. You know, once again, it's a question of talent.
Well, hang on a minute. Here's the thing: I don't care if the private companies vote themselves to have more money. I care when it's the government that does it. Another thing is with the headline here: 1 in 7 denied GP appointment. I had a similar experience, but I demanded and was like, "No, I'm coming in to see you." Do you remember when I had my earache?
Yeah.
They said, "Oh, we could do a phone consultation." I was like, "This is ridiculous. What do you mean a phone consultation? You need to have a look in my ear. You can't do that on a phone consultation." It was a waste of my time.
Yeah.
And it was a waste of my time actually going in as well, because I went in and just went, "Yep, it's an ear infection as well." But as I went in, the woman was clumsy, the GP, and she hit the infection and like made a little like scraped it and caused unbelievable amounts of more pain. She was trying to get me out quickly so she could see other patients. She rushed it, and it ended up really actually causing me a lot of pain because it was rushed.
Not a bit surprised. The whole thing needs reorganizing. But you see, the big problem is, and if I may say so, is my war against computers is a very valid one. Is computers have they are now running the NHS. They're running local GPs.
I don't understand why 50% of the staff need to be administrators then, if the computers are running it.
Well, you'll always find top heavy in any organisation. Shouldn't be, but that's what you'll find. But what I get upset about is, and I sat and chatted to the former head of my surgery here, very nice man, now semi-retired. And we sat and chatted, and he said, you know, you cannot run medicine without knowing who you're treating. And you need face-to-face, because that's how you find out what's wrong with people. Looking at notes on the computer it doesn't help. And that's exactly where we sit at the moment, is bloody computers. Don't misunderstand. I'm all for the use of computers. Of course, it would be foolish and Luddite to say not. But what's happening at the moment is that the computer is running the managers, not the other way around. And that has got to stop. There's got to be a big sea change there. because otherwise we are in dreadful, dreadful trouble. Dreadful trouble. I mean, silly things like a direct debit being sent back because you're 2 pence over in your bank account. And why is it sent back? Because the computer will not recognize anything other than yay or nay. And it's crazy, absolutely crazy. Right, shall we go
Well-
on to the eye?
Yeah, and one other thing is with the banking, you're right. I mean, I got fined for being a £1 in my overdraft. I don't actually have. Oh, sorry, let me bring myself in. I don't actually have an overdraft because I haven't set that into my account. But because I went into the minus, it fined me. But I was only £1 in the minus, and that was only for 48 hours before I got some money in there. I was like, well, thanks, great. That was a waste of
Yeah,
£1.
yeah. Well, I mean, actually, if you can recognize that you've got a problem, and that all you need is 24 hours, you can go into the local branch, and they have to tap in to a computer, which because it is geared to just recognizing whether you're over or under.
Just
It tells the lady there, no, you can't give him a 24 hours and £3 to cover it. It's absolutely crazy, quite crazy.
Yeah, it is.
Okay,
ridiculous.
I. UK health warning as Arctic blast arrives. Well, it is cold out there. Yes, it is cold out there. And locally, we're going to reach 7 degrees today. But then it's going to go downhill from here. It's going to get colder as the week progresses. And I think, Max, you said that the weekend will be a little warmer. Is that right?
No, I said the complete opposite. It's going to be snowing on the weekend.
Ah, right. Yeah, well, sometimes the temperature, it snows when the temperature goes up. It doesn't always follow that it snows when it's very, very cold.
It's 3 degrees right now, still. But it's going to reach a high of 7.
Yeah.
And a low of 0. And tomorrow night will be the first time since last winter we will be in the minus. It's going to be -3 tomorrow night with a high of 5 degrees tomorrow.
Well, it is often said, and it becomes true, that if we get a very, very nice summer, a very good summer, and we did, we had a very, very good summer this year,
Oh, yeah.
is that you then get a nasty winter. And it looks as if that's going to be fulfilled.
I loved it during the summer. I was so happy. It was 40 degrees, and I went to the beach and just stayed in the sea all day. I loved it. It was great.
The eye is, you were asking about this earlier, antibiotics en masse for children in Strep A schools. Strep A, and I'm not quite sure what it is, but it's an infection. It has started to kill children. But they are now saying that they need to give antibiotics to thousands and thousands of children in schools that are vulnerable to Strep A. So that's what the eye is on about.
It's just strep throat. It's a new variant.
Yeah, maybe.
No,
However, you can't deny the fact that if there are 10 or 12 kids that have died from it, it can kill.
Yeah, it can kill, but it's probably got a death rate of 0.0001%. Sure, obviously.
Does that help if you're the person that dies?
No, but the person who died was probably already very, 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 very sick.
I
mean, kids almost never die from the cold, and when it is, they're usually incredibly vulnerable or have cancer already. And it's a shame, but not everyone is born with good immune systems.
I won't get into an argument with you right now because I don't know enough about Strep A. But I will look into it and see what my own version of assessment is.
6 kids have died from strep.
Oh, incidentally, one of the little side issues here is that England won a really thrilling test against Pakistan. And really high scores. There's 500 runs and from both sides. And England won it in the last period of the last day with a good show in the field and some good bowling. So good for them. Good for them. The Financial Times. An oil tanker jam gathers off Turkey as the launch of a Russia oil cap halts sailings. It is, I think that what happens is I lived in Vancouver for 17 years, which is a port, a major port, and it was interesting when the loading capacities got to bursting point, as you could see the ships all anchored out in the bay, waiting their turn to come in and get loaded. And it seems that, as if I'm reading this story right, that the Soviets, not the Soviets, the Russians. I'm sorry, I shouldn't use that term, the Soviets. The Russians have been buying up old tankers and starting to build a new fleet so that they can move their oil around without being dependent upon either the Gulf or, for that matter, the West. And now it would appear that because they've done this, that the oil vessels are waiting to get into various ports to get loaded, and that the capacity ashore doesn't meet the number of tankers that have been built into a fleet. So there we go. Incidentally, not on a headline is that the Russians are now accusing the Ukrainians of actually bombing their some of their airfields. Is you know, it just shows how twisted we get. Well, there's been explosions on a couple of Russian airfields.
Right.
And the Russians are saying, "Oh, it's you naughty Ukrainians! You're attacking our airfields. What the hell do they expect? They invade a country, and hey, listen, it's our right to invade you. You don't dare fight back. And when you do, we got to tell you what naughty boys you are." I find it astonishing, to be quite honest with you, that Ukraine has fought back the way that it has. I also find it astonishing that Russia isn't the military giant that it's always made out to be. But we talk about my time in Ukraine, and along with this colleague, we would drive around to various small towns and so on and so forth, and you would come around a corner, and there was a MiG jet set in concrete, its nose pointing to the sky, and that meant that it was an arms factory. Well, it was no longer an arms factory; it was making cutlery or whatever. They converted it, but obviously it got to talk about what would have happened if the West and Russia had locked horns. And he said one of the big problems that the Russians have is that their thinking and their design is they make things terribly, terribly heavy. For instance, a MiG jet has to blast itself off it doesn't fly. It's a rocket. It's a moving rocket. And their land forces are the same. That they build big, heavy stuff, fuel guzzling stuff, and that compared to the very light and maneuverable stuff that we actually produce, means that we would have the edge. So it was an interesting highlight or viewpoint on the clash of the titans, if you like. The Metro. Oh no, here we go again. That's back to Harry. Now, did you manage to find our ghost train?
I did, yes.
Right. Before we go to this next one, let's see what a ghost train is like, shall we?
We'll play the ghost train clip.
Play the ghost train clip.
All right, here we go.
Many people find commuting by train tiresome. But one of the pleasures of taking a train to London is that it passes through some of the most beautiful countryside in the UK. None more so than the view of the countryside as the line approaches Clayton Tunnel, just north of Brighton. The tunnel is the longest on the line, at 1.25 miles, running under the South Downs. It's unusual because the entrance is not the usual railway brick. It is instead designed to look like the gateway to a castle. On top is a cottage built for the railway's lightkeeper in 1849. The tunnel itself was opened in 1841 and the cottage added later. Idyllic. But after 1861 it became a nightmare, or at least for those who believe in ghostly goings-on. In August of that year, a night train left Brighton, travelling north to London. Partway through the tunnel, it stopped at what it thought was a danger signal from the lightman. The engine driver was correct. The railway official had indeed given a danger signal, but the train had rushed past him before pulling up. Thinking the train had cleared the tunnel, the unfortunate lightman gave the all clear to a following train. And it slammed into the back of the first train in the dark, killing 23 and injuring 176 more. It was the worst ever accident on the line. And people walking on the downs over the underground passage have reported hearing the screams of the passengers as the trains pile into each other. The line is now also a direct line from Lewes. I've travelled through that tunnel 1,000 times. I've never heard a scream other than the screech of the wheels and brakes. But I've never walked over the downs at that point either. And I turned down an invitation to stay in the cottage overnight. In fact, I get tense each time I go into the tunnel, knowing what had happened more than 165 years ago. But my fellow passengers carry on reading their newspapers, obviously oblivious to both the tragedy and the ghosts. I could sometimes scream at them. The ghosts of Clayton Tunnel. Eerie. Bloody eerie.
Okay, and we're back.
Right. Okay. Now we were a bit naughty in playing that because that is a story, a true story about a ghost train, and the reason for that is that the metro, I think it is
The ghost
is the
train
metro
ticket scandal.
says a ghost ticket scandal. Ghost train ticket scandal. And what it's talking about is that the rail firms are using loopholes to axe thousands of services, but officially recording without officially recording them. This comes after travellers were sold tickets for the cancelled trains, the paper says, and that the Office of Road and Rail has admitted 314,000 services were dropped in the year to the 15th of October. In other words, they to cover up the fact that they're cutting services is they're still selling tickets to them. So it's a ghost train. They are ghost trains. They do not exist. You buy your ticket and you stand on the station and you wait for the train to appear, and does not.
I would assume they were selling tickets to people on days of strikes.
Well, that as well, I'm sure. But I mean, if if in fact you say this service is not viable, I want to close it, by all means, you argue for the closure. But what you don't do is you don't close it without telling anybody and then sell tickets to it. So, for instance, Max, if you wanted to go to Hove from here and you were sold a ticket to the 3:45 train that calls at Brighton and then goes on to Hove, and it doesn't appear, although you were sold a ticket to travel on it, is you're going to be feel very hard done by. And in fact, it is illegal. But it says that this story alleges that the train companies are at it to 314,000 services were dropped in the year to October, and but they were still selling tickets to them.
Wait, so what? Say that. Repeat that line again.
314,000 services were dropped by train companies to the year to October. Quite remarkable. I mean, if this story is true, and I have no doubt, no reason to doubt it at this particular stage, is they are the train companies are really being criminal, and it is time somebody stepped in. Now, the funny thing is that we think that people can't get away with stuff because it's evident. It becomes evident to you, and it becomes evident to me. As you know, they have scrutiny committees that look into these things, and I have to say that no committee in government, from the top to the bottom, has more wool pulled over its eyes than scrutiny committees. The one for Lewis District Council is it might as well not meet. I mean, it's just ludicrous. The executive just twist it around its little finger, and so why bother to have it? The only thing is that the scrutiny committees do not work. So it's up to people like you and I to say, hey, what's going on here? To try and get some action somewhere.
Yeah. All right. Well, before we move on, we have a comment here from Teresa Richardson saying, "Good morning, Keith."
Good morning, Teresa.
So we got her comment up there on screen.
Right. What did she say?
Good morning, Keith.
Oh, just good morning.
Yes.
Very nice to know that you're watching us, Teresa. And as a matter of fact, I came across a little sting the other day, which I will play later in the week because I love it. What we say is a Mirador television is like Marmite. You either love it or hate it, but you never forget it. So, I'm delighted that you're here, whether you like us or don't. But we do stamp our little feet. We most certainly are stamping them this morning. So God bless you. If we actually upset you, we don't apologize. But if you like what we say, by all means, climb onto the bandwagon and let people know. So thanks, Teresa, and thanks for taking the time to actually just make even the comment is just good morning.
Well, again, before we move on, do you want to explain what just happened outside that we missed?
Oh, yes.
Very short-lived.
Well, now, it's my pal Max, sitting across from me here, has astonishing hearing. He says, no, it's quite ordinary. And then in his usual diplomatic way, he said, the trouble is, Keith, you know, at 80 some odd is your hearing's not so great anymore. And he heard the bagpipes long before I did. And then suddenly there was a group marching by with some bagpipes and with a ragtag and bobtail procession of people trying to get signatures, I think. And it was, what do they call themselves?
It was Extinction Rebellion.
Extinction Rebellion. That's
and Just Stop Oil. Just gone by. There was very last time the protest came past. There were like at least 100 of them or more. It was a big protest last time. 25.
This time, yeah. And what were they protesting?
Oil. Just stop oil.
Just oil.
Yeah, just stop oil. It's always a ridiculous thing.
You can keep that one.
God bless you. Thank you. I might, Kevin, I might actually get you to do it because I'm all fingers and thumbs, and I might get my thumb stuck to my ear. Now, ladies and gentlemen of the jury, we have Kevin. His big claim to fame is that he forces me into testing his beer. Normally every Tuesday. He hasn't asked me this morning. I don't know why. But he is Mr. Fix-It. Anything. You can ask him to do anything. And I broke my spectacles yesterday, and right now he's trying to put them back together.
How did you break your glasses?
Well, I mean, it was the silliest thing. Is I was trying to carry something, and I tend to take my spectacles off and carry them. And I did. And when I tried to open a door, doing three things at once, is I crunched the spectacle and broke the frame.
Oh, you broke the glass as well.
Oh, did I?
Yeah, you cracked the glass.
Oh dear. Oh dear. Maybe a cracked glass for the moment, just to keep.
Just to get you.
Yes. Get me through the day. I mean, a man who is so good to me and giving me beer at 9 o'clock in the morning, I like to see him.
I don't know how you can cope, because if I don't have my glasses on for more than 5 minutes, I get an incredibly bad headache.
Really?
Yeah, I know what you mean.
Yeah. Well, of course, I've just had cataracts removed, and unfortunately, one cataract perfectly okay for the right eye, and I just had the left eye done a few months ago, and it went wrong. So I have to keep on going back to the hospital and having examine it and so on. So ultimately, I will be able to see pretty well, and I will have to have new spectacles to adjust to the new vision. But their advice is don't get new spectacles, a new prescription, until such time as
you've got it sorted out.
Yeah. So I'm trying to hang on to this one if I can.
Yeah. Well, my granddad recently had cataract surgery as well and had to have his license taken away because of it.
He had to have what?
His license was taken away.
Oh right, his driving license.
Yeah, he's a perfectly good driver. He's driven all of his life, doing that for a living. But because of his eyes, he's had his license revoked.
Ooh.
Right, Kane, Captain of England, is in the Mirror. It demands the front page. Kane's message to keep calm and carry on. And the England captain reassures worried teammates after Sterling has gone home that don't worry, chaps, we're a team and we're all going to win. And actually, there are some interesting headlines this morning.
Oh, is this the guy whose house was broken in?
No, he's the captain.
Sterling. That was
Raheem Sterling.
His house got broken into.
He came back. But two things. I did notice, I think it has happened, that Eddie Jones of the England rugby manager has been sacked. His track record, he was terrific with Japan. He turned Japan into a major rugby force. And when he took over England, I think he's won about 7 games in 25 or something, a very poor record. And long last, the Rugby Football Union have had enough and they've sacked him. But then, as I mentioned earlier, England won the first test in Pakistan in swashbuckling style, apparently. I mean, they really let go with the bat and then managed to face it. Oh, God bless you. Look at that.
Well,
yeah.
That should be okay.
Mr. Fix-It.
Well, I don't know. Yeah,
Just let it set for a
yeah,
while.
it needs to set.
All right, now,
So
you
you
see,
keep that if it
Alright.
comes undone again.
yeah. Now, what Kevin did is he managed to do that without sticking the thing to his left nostril.
Right, sorry, I've got lots to do this week.
You're forgiven. You're excused from broadcasting to go and get on with it.
Yeah,
Well, those are the papers.
yeah.
There's not a great deal to startle us on local news.
Well, before we go into the local news, Teresa, sorry I missed your comment from 5 minutes ago. Teresa Richardson says, I love it, XXX. Yes, I assume. Do you know Teresa?
No,
Oh, okay.
no. She's a friend through television. Thank you, Teresa. Yeah, that's lovely. No, I don't know where she's from, or I don't know anything about her, and it actually, in some ways, that makes her message all the more important. She found us not because she knows us or anything. She found us and likes what we do. That's great. That's terrific. Keep watching, Teresa. Keep watching. Right. Okay. Now, let us remind people about the weather again. High of 7, but
High
it's
of 7
only
today.
about 3 or 4
It's
now.
4 degrees.
4 degrees now. It is cold outside, and make sure that you actually wrap up when you go out. I come in very, very early in the morning, and it was cold. But Jane, God bless her, had the fire blazing. It is wonderful to come in and sit by the fire just for a minute or two before actually coming into the bar where our studio is, and getting cracking. What have you now got lined up for us?
Well, if you want to read a local story whilst I try to find episode 2, part 2 of the Bloody Fast of the Tiny Town.
Okay. Well, I mean, I will run through what is making everybody worried locally. Let's see, Sussex News. Today's highlights. Coast Guard and Royal Navy respond to ordnance incident at Sussex Beach. Let's see what that's about, shall we? Coast Guard and Royal Navy respond to ordnance incident at Littlehampton Beach. Emergency service responded to reports of Littlehampton Beach yesterday afternoon. Crew from Littlehampton, alongside bomb disposal units from the Royal Navy, were called to the beach. They responded to reports of possible ordnance at around 12:20 p.m. this afternoon. Now, I don't quite understand what it means for possible ordnance, but I'm assuming that they found a bomb on the beach. After some investigation, the Littlehampton Coast Guard and rescue team has since confirmed it was a false alarm. Oh dear. After all that, it was a false alarm. And let's see. A car left stuck in park after crashing off road and ploughing over fence. Well, let's see where that happened. A car left stuck in Horsham Park after crashing off the road and ploughing over a fence. The driver has been arrested after he crashed over a fence and into Horsham Park. The crash happened in North Parade at about 1:20 a.m. on Sunday morning. Pictures from the scene show a white vehicle tipped downwards, its rear the vehicle stuck to the top of the fence. The man involved in the crash was arrested on suspicion of driving while over the legal limit. Oh dear, dear, dear. Let's see. I think that is more or less the. There is the investigation into the Shoreham Air Show crash, which is what, 6 or 7 years ago now, continues, and the hearing has heard that the witnesses describe how seeing a huge fireball as the aircraft taking place in an air show, and the Horsham.
Tens of
Well,
thousands.
they describe it as the Brighton Airport, but he tried to perform a maneuver too close to the ground, and crashed the car, and crashed the plane, and it went onto the road. Many of us have travelled that road.
I know multiple people who were there at the incident.
Yeah.
It's just literally, what, 5-6 miles down the road from here?
Yeah.
It's really not very far.
No, it's not very far at all. Now, there is one other thing that's coming here, is warning to drivers over extreme danger of red weather warnings.
What day is that?
This is
Is this
up
on this weekend?
Let's see. It was updated today. So it came on the weekend, yeah. More than 1 in 6 motorists admit they would not change their driving plans despite a red weather warning. The AA, which commissioned a poll of 13,000 drivers, said people who ignore alerts about weather conditions are needlessly putting themselves and their passengers at risk. Okay, so something's fairly obvious there, but...
Well, here's the thing. My mum would have been one of those people saying she wouldn't change her driving patterns because her job requires her to drive all over the place. She's a nurse she's a nurse for individual people in their homes. She's a community carer. So she goes to help them out of bed, get washed, get dressed, take the medication, all sorts of things.
I think probably is what they're saying is, don't go and visit Aunt Bessie while these things. I think that it is only reasonable that people like your mum do drive in those conditions, because otherwise somebody is going to be to lose the care that could keep them alive. So I think that you tell mom to keep at it.
Well, if she doesn't get paid from work.
Well, there we go. Yeah, there we go.
I mean, I remember she had to go out because she was working a couple months ago during the storm we had not that long ago, which was the worst one since the 1980s. She had to drive in that. No one, in the 80s, a lot of people died from that storm, but the one we had a couple months ago, not a single person died. I guess because everyone learnt the lesson.
Well, let's hope that's good. Why?
Yeah.
Okay. Are we able to?
Yes, we are.
We are.
Episode 2, part 2, ready to go.
Good. Okay. Now, what we said to you is leading up to Christmas, we're going to play the entire 8 episodes of The Bloody Past of a Tiny Town. Many people have not seen it, despite the fact that 2.5 million people saw it the Christmas after it was released. But it is our documentary about the history of Lewis, and so we're showing it in half episodes, as it were. This one is episode 2, part 2. So take it away, Maestro.
All right, here we go.
Lewes increased in importance as the Norman occupation took hold. Not that it wasn't important before that. In Saxon times, the town had 2 mints. And in case my pronunciation confuses you, those are places where coins were made, not a sweet that is eaten to try to disguise what you've been drinking. The now much larger cathedral town of Chichester only had 1 mint, which not only indicated the importance of Lewes, but started a sort of battle of popularity between the two places. The struggle for the rights to hold assizes, for example, created a tug of war that saw Chichester hold trials for a while, only for Lewes to get them back. Lewes won. The Crown Court and Lewes Assizes are still located in the modern town, and they ain't going nowhere. Mighty though the Norman castle was, it was dwarfed by the Cluniac Priory, just across this small valley. William de Warenne, who actually fought at the Battle of Hastings, was granted Lewes, along with lots of other goodies, as the spoils of war. His wife Gundrada, a religious lady, asked for and got a sponsorship to establish the priory, just 20 years after England was conquered. Henry VIII's chief vandal, Thomas Cromwell, pulled it down in 1547. Doing the bidding of the king who had fallen out with Rome over his love life. But the workmen of the 11th century were first-class masons, and some of these buildings have lasted to this day. Look at that, almost 1,000 years old. It wasn't just Henry and Thomas who were vandals. The good burghers of Lewes did their part over successive centuries, digging up the grounds and using the stones to build their garden sheds. By the time it was destroyed, the priory dominated the Lewes skyline. Its great church was immense, and the whole complex had its own hospital, dormitories, dining hall, and a wharf. Boats sailed up to the priory to carry and fetch goods. How times change. This river, the Winterbourne, carried ships and barges up to the docks in the priory. Nowadays, it would barely carry a paper boat. The priory was vitally important to the local economy, bringing in goods and attracting important visitors.
The ship would have actually come very near to the edge of where the tennis courts are. That's where, because you've got the Cockshoot river or stream which fed into the Ouse, and then yes, there would have been a wharf here from which they unloaded all the stones that they used to build the priory. Because what we see now is a lot of the infill. It's like the cavity walling of the priory. The outside, the dress stone, which is now used in places like Southover Grange, came from Carr on the Isle of Wight or from Caen, so it all had to be imported. It was a significant part of the town. It started small with only 4 monks, but over the course of about 400 or 500 years, the numbers swelled. The maximum number we had was probably about 100 monks. But the church, the big church that was built in the 14th century, was bigger than Chichester Cathedral. It was massive. It would have dominated the skyline in Lewes, so it was incredibly important. And it looked both ways. It looked inland because Lewes was the mother priory for other Cluniac monasteries in the UK, and it also looked towards Europe with its mother house in Cluny. We do a lot of education work with a whole range from tiny children up to adults to get them interested in different aspects of the priory. And the trustees of Lewes Priory Trust are very keen that it's always open and free access. And it's a beautiful place that everybody can come to. They can learn about the history. They can sit in our herb garden and contemplate. And we've just started a new kitchen garden, which will grow vegetables. And again, this is for the community to get involved in. So it's very much based in the community of Lewes.
But there's nothing like a bit of competition to stir the blood of a true Lewesian. and sometime in the 15th century a big fight is recorded between the bailiffs of the town and the prior's men in a local tavern. One of the 63 pubs that once existed in the town, no doubt. The town was walled in 1275, and a fat lot of good it did. When de Montfort's troops attacked, they swept into the town with no trouble. That then caused the town's nobility to strengthen them. They remained intact from then for some centuries, when they came down to the hammers of developers as the town grew. Entry to the town was by 3 gates, north, south and west, each now remembered through the name and a few remaining stones where the wall had been. The walls may have gone, and most of the priory. But many buildings in Lewes have stood the test of time and the vandalism of kings. This church was originally a hospice attached to the priory, and this was an early hospital from the same period. And Cromwell wasn't daft enough to pull down a Tudor manor which Henry had given as part of a divorce settlement. He kept Anne of Cleves' house for himself. Within the town walls, this building has more than stood the test of time. St Michael's was the original castle church, built about 1240. It's the parish church of the town and holds both church services and musical concerts today. There is a helmet and depiction of Sir Patrick Hamilton on one of the walls. Lewes is close to the coast and open to attack from French marauders, who regularly attacked the coast. On one occasion in the 16th century, ships sailed up the Ouse far enough for them to be spotted from inside the town. This noble knight depicted here was renowned for his courage in seeing them off. Later, revolutionary Tom Paine was married here before decamping to the Americas. And its spiral tower is one of the few surviving in the UK. Before we disappear into the folds of one of Lewis's hostelries, there's one more legacy from Henry's break with Rome. His successor Queen Mary wanted to restore the Roman Church to England, and she was very vicious towards dissenters. 17 people who refused to give up their beliefs or had read the Bible in English were seized and thrown into a dungeon in Lewes. In November 1545, they were marched up these stairs out to a stake and put in tar barrels. Burning to death in that way was a very horrible way to die. One more chapter in the bloody Lewes High Street saga. This act of savagery has not been lost in the mists of time, however. The 17 martyrs, as they're known, are remembered on November the 5th in the biggest bonfire ceremonies of any Guy Fawkes night in the world. 7 bonfire societies stage a joint procession through the town, torches blazing, effigies of Guy Fawkes and of so-called enemies of bonfire, those who have behaved badly in the year, pulled on carriages stuffed with fireworks. It's a colourful and impressive procession, but with an underlying commemoration of the 17 dead. The parade stops at the town's war memorial for the laying of wreaths to the fallen. Prayers are said. Banners extolling the names of the martyrs are held high. And rousers, or better known to us as bangers, are freely thrown around as the people march. It's a colourful parade. And I feel underdressed. with just one of my hats to show off. But Bonfire, as it's known locally, is not the only memory of Bloody Lewis. He suffered a far worse fate from a hidden foe, the Black Death. On Bloody Red to Deadly Black. Next episode, how rats destroyed a major port and brought more historical carnage to Lewis. Until then, a bloody goodbye. Poor old Lewis. I need a drink.
Okay, and we're back.
Right. Well, there you are. That's the second part of the second episode of the Bloody Past of a Tiny Town. And it's those of you who have moved here recently, it might give you some insight into the community that you've moved into. I am particularly fond of the Priory. And when I first started Mirador Television, way back in 2015 or so, I used to go down to the Priory at 5 o'clock in the morning, a summer morning, and broadcast from there. And I got to know two things. First of all, that the monks only come out and show themselves to special people. And it took a long time before they came out and showed themselves to me. They only appear very early in the morning, and it's very interesting watching them going about their business because it brings the Priory to life. And the other thing is that the rabbits that are denizens of the Priory grounds are delightful. And after a while, they get used to you and they come out, and you can watch their little families scurrying around and so on. So that's a very special place for me because I would broadcast. Sometimes I would share the secrets of the monks, things that they told me I passed on. Whee! So there. Right. Okay. Now you picked out a couple of stories, and is a police watchdog was forced to quit over child sex allegations, and he didn't tell Minister Boss himself. I unfortunately can't read the detail on this because my spectacles are still drying from having the super glue put on them. But it would appear. Is it set now?
Yeah.
All right.
Just put them on carefully.
We'll put them on carefully. There we go. I don't super glue them to my nose. Historic sex allegations that forced a police watchdog to resign relates to an underage teenager. It emerged yesterday. Detectives began investigating Michael Lockwood in June, but he did not inform his boss, the Home Secretary. In mid-October, the 63-year-old Director General of the Independent Office for Police Conduct was advised to tell the Home Office, but Whitehall sources confirmed he spoke to an official only privately, and he continued in his role as normal. He suddenly told his own staff on Friday that he was resigning from his £140,000 a year post for personal reasons. That's a bit frightening.
Yeah, that is, because if he's, having allegations that he's been having sex with children, why has he not been fired immediately and was forced to quit?
I suppose he would argue is, look, people are alleging this, but I'm not guilty. But it'll take time for me to prove that I'm not guilty or whatever, and therefore there's got to be an interim period between when it's revealed and when he actually will be charged and go to court. So what he's done is he's fallen on his sword and said, "Okay, I'll quit." which actually makes me think that there's probably no smoke without fire, or no fire without smoke, or whatever the phrase is. But the mere fact is, it does seem that those people who dally, shall we say, with young people do seem to be getting into great positions of authority and power, and that's frightening. And what was the other story that you thought was worthwhile?
There's a couple one. There's a couple in there. If you turn back a few pages, there's one about people not being able to see their GPs.
Oh, right.
But whilst you're looking for that, there's an interesting story here. You know, not related to anything particular. I just thought it was interesting. Is Richard Osman is his name?
Richard Osman, yes.
Richard Osman is getting married to the female Doctor Who lead. I thought that was quite interesting because Richard Osman is the guy who does the TV show Pointless.
Yes.
And Richard Osman actually went to school in Cookfield. He went to Warden Park Secondary School.
Well, there's a big picture in the inside of the Mail.
Yeah.
With him with this lady who seems to be quite delightful.
Well, he's their star alumni. He's the most successful person who's ever gone to that school.
Right. He's a giant, isn't he? He's very tall, very big man. Yeah.
6'3" or something. He is tall.
It's somebody in rugby in England trying to get hold of me. I'm afraid I'll have to wait. Now, what was the story? Little John's take on things is, oh no, it's 1997 again, and New Labour zombies are on the prowl. Little John actually calls it the way he sees it, and I admire him for that. And he said last week, I said I was going to sleep and waking up in 1973. Yesterday, I woke up in 1997. The headlines revolved around Tony Blair, Gordon Brown, and his other, and the other Miliband brother. They're putting the New Labour band back together. Not so much early Jake and Elwood as the return of the living dead from the Blues Brothers 2000. Well, I understand what he's saying. He's referring to Keir Starmer, who is targeting private schools and saying he's going to take away they are let off paying tax.
Which I think they should be.
Yes, I think so too.
The reason private schools aren't taxed is because they still pay with their taxes for public education. Even though their children aren't using public education, they still have to pay for it, but they pay extra to send their kids to go to private school. So I don't understand why that should then be taxed on top of that. It does seem ridiculous because they're still paying into the system no matter what.
Yes, and actually, the fact of the matter is we need our children educated. We really do. Now, once again, I have a real go at the present modern educational system.
I think
it's flawed.
I think the current educational system is designed to just be an indoctrination.
Well, it is.
I really do.
Yeah. Well, perhaps one day I'll argue with you on that. What I do think, though, is that we must be very careful not to close schools or cause schools to close. We need to educate our children. Actually, reforming the education or going back is. I can't find this other story that you mentioned.
Okay. Should we have a look for it?
Yeah. One of the things that you might play is one of our little Christmas stings, which you'll find in.
Yeah, give me a few minutes to find that first.
Yeah.
I'll get that up.
It's I made these in the middle of the night.
All right, well, let's go to the scenes in Sussex first before we do that. Just for a quick breather.
Yes.
All right, we're back. I haven't found the clip yet, so if you want to.
What he's saying is, Keith, you've got the gift of the gab. Will you please carry on chatting? Why not? One of the things that I think that I am terribly critical of what the local councils do in terms of Christmas. Now, you've got to believe in something to do it properly. And there is no belief in Christmas from our local councils. The display on the high street is pathetic. It really is. And you would wonder, in fact, I did do a couple of years ago an item that said, did the Grinch steal Lewis High Street? It's sad. And we at Mirador are trying to do our little bit by having a little carol party in the White Hart on December the 22nd in the evening. If you happen to be wandering by, it is by invitation, but we're never going to actually say bugger off. So if you are wandering by, stick your nose in and say, "Oi, I want to hear the carols with you," and you would be made very welcome. But the fact of the matter is that we need a desire. We need people on our councils who care about our town. And the fact of the matter is, our town is governed from Eastbourne. So why the hell should they care? Why should they care? Except that they are elected officials, elected councillors from local ridings. And I watch occasionally. Now, I watch probably one a day. The various movies that come out, they're actually wonderful. And if I can digress a little, because the American feel-good stories for Christmas are always on one theme or another. The poor guy falls in love without knowing it. Is a woman whose parents are filthy rich, or the poor girl falls in love with the guy who turns out to be a prince from some long-lost principality in Europe. and then they all overcome this class distinction and so on and so forth. Absolutely wonderful stuff. Wonderful stuff. But it moved me. Well, the first reason that I mentioned that is that they always have in the center of these American towns great displays of Christmas trees and so on and so forth, and everybody comes out and they sing carols around the tree and so on and so forth. Now, you don't make those things happen unless you believe in them, and our councillors obviously do not believe. All they believe in, and I'm sorry if I'm doing you down and I'm doing you a disservice, all you believe in is pigs' snouts in the trough. Is you've got two town hall dinner parties or whatever, which councillors are and their wives and or partners or whatever are invited, and they are paid for by us. So snouts in the trough again, and that doesn't help. That doesn't make us feel good. What we need is some real good stuff right in the heart of the town, and it's not beyond the bounds of possibility. If we actually started to think about it, and instead of having private dinners for councillors, if we use that money, there are companies around the country who will actually come and do you a display for a couple of days or so. It'd be absolutely superb, I think, if we had something like that just to turn us on. Now, why did I start to talk about the Grinch stealing Christmas from Lewes High Street? I did mention that we are making our own very small, very significant effort to have a carol service, not a carol service, a carol wine party in the hotel here on December the 22nd. That's a Thursday evening from 7 until 10. To a so-called invited list, a number of people who should, just out of duty, a sense of duty, come to that. Said, "Oh no, we're far too busy." Yeah, bullshit. Is what you are. You're too damn lazy. That's the problem. We have got lazy councillors. Lazy councillors. What the hell do you do? I can't find out. I can't find out. The best that I can do is talking to people in the political sphere here is you're trying to get your man elected at the next election. I don't care about the next election. I don't care about your man. I care about this town, and I expect you to be doing things about it, and you don't. You're a lazy bloody lot, or you've lost faith in the town, in which case, resign. Quit, because you're no use to us. No use whatsoever. Actually, that goes to the three layers of government we've got here. You know, somebody said to me the other day something about the county council. They hadn't quite grasped the fact that the county council looks after the county. It's here because we are the county town of East Sussex. But that county council has not made it clear what they are about or where they are. They much rather actually get on with wittering about nothing. You want to witter? Join us. We witter about nothing. We've constantly made the invitation to come here and chat on Mirador. Do they take us up on it? Well, 2 have. 3 have. That's all. And it's just conversations with Stuart Dolby. We've had some really first-class people. People at the top of their profession from all around the world appear on it. Well, the local people do. No. They have no appreciation of anything outside their own backyard. Well, we need people with vision. We need people who understand what's going on in the world. We need people who have see the place that Lewes can have in the position that Lewes can undertake and enjoy in what's going on in the country, right? We say here, Mirador is a local television station, but it is not parochial. we don't get too excited about lost cats. It's not that we are unsympathetic to lost cats. There are lots of people much better set up to look after lost cats than we are. Now, I've rambled, so I've even forgotten why we started to talk about this. Max, can you remember?
Yeah, because I was trying to find the Christmas thing. I said go ahead and
Right. Yes, for me too. It gave me an opportunity to rant. Actually, I have lost all sense of time. It's 10 past 10 now.
So we
approximately,
have Christmas A or Christmas B.
Well, try Christmas A.
Okay.
There we go.
All right. I'm not entirely sure what it is, so hopefully it's the right one. Okay, and we're back. All right.
So that's our little hello, Lewis, and hello, viewers. Yes, we are starting to enjoy Christmas. We deliberately didn't do anything in November because we all felt that it was just too early, even though by about November the 3rd or the 4th, everybody was busy getting Christmassy and so on. But to me, this concentration should be in this month. And now I'm beginning to, as they say, it's beginning to feel like Christmas. It it's not a vocation, it's just a job.
Do you want to start that from the beginning again? We lost the stream for a minute.
Sorry?
Just start from the beginning again.
Right. 5 million a month can't see the GP when they want?
Yeah, we cut out.
Oh, right. We cut out there, apparently. Yeah. Dear. Never mind. I got to start again. Because what happens is that there has been a collapse in the way that we our health services. Now, part of it is, and this is where the media have a job. Up until just a few years ago, they had a vocation, right? They worked because they believed in their profession. Now it's how much can we make? And what's happened is that they want a 9 to 5 existence. They don't want to be called out in the middle of the night. They don't want to have surgeries that are jam-packed with people sitting outside waiting to see them. Well, I'm sorry, but that's what you should be providing, and not the service that you are at the moment, which is no service at all. We never see doctors anymore. And what you don't understand, you don't seem to understand, is that if you don't actually go face to face with your patients, then they start to lose concentration. they start to lose the feeling that they are cared for. They start to lose the wonderment, if you like, of somebody who's looking after our health, sitting in the same room as them and talking sensibly about what's wrong with them. And 5 million a month can't see their GP when they want.
Well,
That's outrageous.
Do you remember when I fractured my wrist?
Yeah.
I couldn't see the doctor. I had to self-medicate, and I wasn't going to go to A&E for something I knew, which was a fractured wrist. I'm not waiting 6-7 hours just for them to go, yep, it's a fractured wrist. So I just self-medicated. I went to the store, got some painkillers, took some antibiotics that we had left in the cupboard, and I bought myself a wrist support because I couldn't be bothered to wait for the doctors because they wouldn't see me in they were like, oh, we can see you in a week. It's like it's a fractured wrist. I need to see it now. Oh, well, then go to A&E.
Yeah.
Was my recommendation from doctors. Go to A&E. And I'm not waiting around 7 hours for them to say, take some painkillers, take some paracetamol, take some,
But is it any better going to A&E? Because I understand that the queues in A&E are pretty fierce.
Yeah, they are. And they're constantly saying, oh, A&E is clogged up. But the doctors keep recommending people to go to A&E. I went, I just went to my local pharmacy and said, do you think this is fractured? And they said, I don't know, go to A&E. So I just went, no, whatever. Can I just have a wrist support?
Yeah.
So I bought a wrist support. All of it, cost me 15 quid, which is probably cheaper than a prescription would be for my age. So.
Yes. One of the things that bothers me is that you and Liza quite often have a go at the World Economic Forum. Is what you say is that it is a forum for the rich and the powerful who like to pull the strings, and they're not always in the best interests of anybody other than themselves.
They're almost like me.
All right. I would accept that to some extent. Now, one of the things that the World Economic Forum embraced a few years ago was globalization.
Well, they still are embracing.
Well, now other powers that be then, I thought it was the Economic Forum itself, had come to the conclusion that globalization isn't all that it's cracked up to be, and that in fact globalization shouldn't be a watchdog for industry throughout the world, throughout the globe. But what happened here in Lewis, and what happens is reflected around the country, is that they globalized. They brought all the surgeries together. They brought all the services together. So now it's one big amorphous bloody mass, and you don't even know who your doctor is, let alone whether you see them or not.
No,
it was bound to be a disaster. I was actually on an advisory panel for a little while at the local surgery, and I expressed my concern over this. No, it'll all be all right on the night. Well, it hasn't. It is a disaster. And the sooner we deglobalize and go back to local surgeries, and for that matter, local hospitals. We are lucky that we've got still a local cottage hospital here in Lewis. Not that it behaves much as a cottage hospital, but at least it is there to serve local residents.
Yeah, we have 3 in our local area, within a 5-mile radius. We've got the local Cookfield GP where I live. We have the Vale surgery in Hayward Teague, which is a local one as well. And then obviously you have the Princess Royal Hospital. So that's 3 within a 5-mile radius from my house.
But what I really want to stress is that this globalization, one monumental group of people at the top and pulling all these surgeries together, it hasn't worked. It simply has not worked. The only thing I can say is that it did work when it came to the jab. But when it comes to local people, the 5 million a month is 4.5 million must be in Lewis. And we've only got 17,000 people in the town.
I don't think globalization will jab. I mean, if you want to view it in that way, I guess you could say, the EU, the European Union, didn't have their jabs in time. We got them before anyone else. Us and Israel were the first to get them. Whether that's a good thing or not is up for debate. But being outside of globalization, we could do things for ourselves, and that's why we got the jabs quicker than anyone else. So I don't think globalization did help, but then I also don't think it was a good thing in the first place.
It doesn't work. It doesn't work in medicine. Medicine is all about is Max, you sitting across the desk from me as your doctor, and me talking to you, and I know something about you because you've been a patient of mine for 5 years. I know the things that have happened to you. Nowadays, you go in and you don't know which doctor you're going to see. They pull stuff down from the screen and they read the notes.
Yeah, I used to have one doctor, but within the past 3 years, I guess, since late 2019, I've not had the same doctor once.
Yeah.
And I live in a small village surgery. It's like, what?
I know.
I mean, in the last 3 years, I've only got to see the doctors 3 times.
Crazy.
I've only been to the doctors once this year, and that was a couple last month, was it? A couple weeks ago now.
Yeah. Well, as you know, I took a tumble. I took a fall about 10 days ago, and I'm still hurting. But I haven't even bothered to go to my doctor. At one time, I would have said, I know, and actually, they've managed to break a pledge. And doctors become politicians to some extent when you get into this level of conglomeration. But I should hold them to it. I have a letter from the NHS saying that I have a dedicated doctor because of my age and my condition. And the surgery doesn't know about this letter. I said to the reception people, listen, I have a dedicated doctor, and actually, my dedicated doctor is absolutely superb. I love her to bits. I think she's absolutely terrific, and she really does look after me. But in a period of say 3 years, I've seen 10 other doctors about things instead of her. And on one occasion, I went in and I said, I want to see my dedicated doctor, and they looked and they said, oh gosh, she's not available for a month. So I understand why there's 5 million of us who can't see our GP when we want, or which one.
She was fully booked for a month.
Yeah. Oh, they weren't assigning anybody, even though I was dedicated. Right. So yes, that is a story that is well worthwhile taking a look at, Max. Right, yeah. Where are we now?
We're at 10:22.
Right. Okay. Well, is there another little clip that we can show?
Yeah, I can try to pull one up. It's been a little bit slow. I'm not quite sure why, but it just is. Let's go to the Grange part for a minute. So I'm trying to find. It's being very slow.
Yeah.
Let's go to the part for a minute.
Okay.
Okay, and we're back.
Well, now I'm going to register a complaint. After all the nice things that I've said about him, Kevin is behind us in the bar, and he is cleaning out the pipes and getting the new beer ready for the week. And have I heard, Keith, would you like to test the beer? No, I have not. He's a big disappointment to me, that Kevin. A really big disappointment.
So you just want water then?
Boo boo.
You only want water now because I've purged the pipes and now I'm flashing them through.
All right.
He's not ready yet.
Yeah, I most certainly do not want the water. No, he's one of the world's good guys, Kevin. He's a nice chap. Yeah, right. Have we got something to come?
Yes, I can't find any more Christmas ones, but we have Keith and the Mafia, which I don't think I've seen.
Oh well, that is one of my tall tales, and talking about my brush with the Mafia, rather more.
Maybe it's been renamed, but I don't think I've seen this specific one.
Okay, well, it doesn't really matter because with the way that we're constituted, we're doing a 2.5 to 3 hours. Is people only dip in and out.
Yeah.
So by replaying stuff is actually, if you note carefully, the big boys, ITV, BBC, etc., they replay things a great deal, and over a 24-hour period. I'm a great fan of Heartbeat. I normally watch it, the replays, at 6 o'clock. They play 2 episodes from 6 o'clock until 8 o'clock each evening, and I like to watch it when I can. But I also then found out that they do the same thing in mid-afternoon the day before. So we're not doing anything that the big boys don't do. Let's show this one again because somebody's bound to miss it. And this one is When I Saw the Kiss of Death.
Well, you're right about the replaying stuff. I mean, they still replay the old Carry On films and stuff.
Yes, that's right.
I mean, what was that, 50, 60 years ago now?
Something like that.
They were playing it a long time.
Carry On Up the Khyber, I remember.
That and the Monty Python films still replayed.
Well, actually, there is one channel that I've
when did
discovered.
that come out, by the way?
Sorry?
When was Carry On and Monty Python era?
Oh, it must have been in the 1970s, 1980s, because the people that star in it, they were in their ascendant, right? And Sid James and the lady that eventually ended up in EastEnders, was it the blonde lady? Name will come back to me eventually. But yes, it must. You're right. They must be 30 or 40 years of age or old.
Well, if they're from that like 70s and 80s, that's 40, 50 years ago now.
Yeah. But there is a certain equality about these programs that were made during that era, and I'm happy to say that that quality.
Oh, wow. No. So the Carry On films, the Carry On series started in 1958 and ended in 1978.
Good heavens! Fancy that. Well, there you are. It ended 20 years ago. 30 years ago.
40 years ago.
40 years ago. Mathematics at this hour of the morning is not my strong point. Barbara Windsor is who I was thinking of. She starred in the Carry On films. She was the saucy blonde. But in her later years, she achieved a certain amount of cult stardom because she was the landlady of the Queen Vic in EastEnders, in the soap opera EastEnders. Married, I think, to Dirty Den. Now I'm going back, but those soap operas, Coronation Street and EastEnders, they go on and then on, and they keep going on, and they still retain a fair old audience. Why did we get onto that?
I can't remember actually.
I know because we're going to play my thing about the Mafia.
Yeah, we'll play
and what I was saying is that Yes, we have shown this before,
Well,
but there's no reason why we can't show it again.
well, with what we were just talking about, and I don't. I think you forget. I mean, a lot of people forget how long ago stuff came out. I mean, what was it recently? I think me and my mum were talking about an album that was celebrating 20 years of its release, and I think it was.
No beer.
Oh, okay.
No beer.
No.
Ah, ah,
How are your glasses?
ah.
How's the glasses?
Oh yes, splendid.
Good.
Yes, thank you.
Okay,
I mean,
see you later. Have a good day.
you redeemed yourself this morning, Kevin, by fixing my glasses for not providing me with any beer.
I am so sorry. Right, I'll see you later.
All right. God bless you. There he is, in all his glory. Yeah. So this is actually. I mean, these tall tales, you have to make up your mind whether they're true or whether they're not. So look at me when I say to you, and I look at you in the eye and say, of course, 100% true.
All right, should we go to them?
And by all means.
All right, here we go.
As a journalist, you come across a lot of criminals, of course. And some come across big criminals and some come across small criminals. In my case, it was medium-sized criminals, because the mafia in North America would franchise out areas that weren't quite big enough to tempt them to take over directly. And Vancouver, British Columbia, was one of those areas. So it was franchised out to, would you believe it, with a great Italian name, a chap called Bill Robertson, known as Fats Robertson. He was the mafia chief. And because of my contacts and so on, I knew and chatted to Bill several times. It is interesting that their view, and I say their view because I don't subscribe to it necessarily, is that that is amoral. What they say is that they make money out of society, out of the community, while the government and government people also make money out of society. In other words, they see a counterbalance, the yin and the yang, if you like, which is an interesting viewpoint. Anyway, my wife and I had dinner several times with Bill and other people. And his wife was quite delightful. She was an English model, quite beautiful, very articulate, and charming. One night on the way home from dinner, I said to my wife, she's quite lovely, isn't she? And Valerie turned to me and said, you're getting charmed, you're getting suborned. She's like a rattlesnake. She knows exactly what her husband does. And of course, her husband was responsible for deaths. Now, Bill was imprisoned. It's very rare for a mafia boss to be imprisoned. But he was persuaded that he could open up a gambling joint in an old restaurant fishing lodge at the top of Indian Arm outside Vancouver, which is a great big long fjord. And it's backed by mountains. And those who persuaded him to do it said, you know, all you've got to do is to put somebody in front with a pair of binoculars, and if the RCMP comes sniffing around, you've got no problem, you'll see them coming and we can all scarper. Well, the RCMP always get their men, and they came over the mountains from the back, raided the joint, and Bill went to prison. And while he was in prison, one of his cohorts began to sing like a bird, began to talk to the RCMP about their crime activities and giving them details, which could have kept Bill in prison for much longer than he went for his gambling crime. He came out of prison, and the word was that he was back. His informant, meantime, or the informant, had gone to prison for another crime, and he also had just been released. My colleague, or a colleague, and myself had gone to the city of New Westminster to cover some story or other. It was a very hot night, and on the way back I said to George, my colleague, I'd love a beer. And he said, well, there's a Canadian Legion around the corner, and I'm a member, let's go and have a beer there. Which we did, and we were sitting having our beer, and who appeared at the door but Bill Fats Robertson. And Bill came in, and he just gave a slight acknowledgement to me that he recognised that I was there. He walked over to another table and he leaned over and he said, good to see you back, Louis. And Louis was the informant who had just been let out of prison. Bill then leaned over and gave him a kiss on the neck. The kiss of death? It didn't mean too much to me at the time. The kiss of death was supposed to be something that was thought up by us media types. It was only shown in movies. But it is said to have gone back to the time of Judas, who kissed Jesus, and that he was the betrayer. And so the kiss of death had come down so that there were a number of instances where the sign that somebody was to be executed was given. And it was always to keep the mafia boss at a distance. He gave the kiss, somebody else would carry out the execution. It didn't mean too much. Robertson had a beer with this chap. Off he went. Once again, a slight acknowledgement as he left. And that was it for the evening. The next morning, I was on early duty and I went down to the police station. I had to look through the police blotter to see what had happened overnight. And there was a report from the Vancouver police that one Louis Meyer had been found dead with his throat cut in the parking lot of the very Canadian Legion in which I had had a drink with my pal, in which Bill Robertson had come and given the kiss of death. All right. Were the two connected? I don't know. I'm not laying any charges. All I know is that it would appear that the kiss of death does exist, that I saw it, and that the recipient was executed. I'm saying that there are three separate instances because even now the mafia have long tentacles, and I wouldn't want anybody to decide to, not that they would sue me, they're not daft. They don't take little fish like me into court so that all sorts of cross-examination can reveal what they're doing. But I would start looking under my car again the way that I did when I first came back from Northern Ireland, just to make sure it hadn't been tampered with or there wasn't a piece of explosive underneath. Oh, dear, dear, dear. And it is one of those things that happens in one's life. So that was the experience that I had. The other, just to tack something else on, is one day I was sitting in the press room in the police station, and in North America it is required that the civil bodies, the civic bodies, provide amenities for the media, for the press. It's more so in the United States under their constitution, one of the amendments, but Canada has followed suit. So I was sitting in the press room all on my own. For why, I don't know. When a lawyer I knew, a young lawyer, came along and said, think you might be interested in Courtroom A. So I toddled up to Courtroom A, settled down, still the only journalist there. In came 3 or 4 bedraggled people, and the charge was harmful, bodily harm, yes, right, bodily harm. This young lawyer got up and said, Your Honour, we are going to demand the death penalty. Shock, horror ran around the courtroom. The Canadian government had suspended the death penalty several years before. Several years, exactly 5 years, and they put it on a moratorium. They hadn't done away with the death penalty. They had just delayed making a decision. Good political move for 5 years. And that had expired. And here, this young lawyer, ready to make his name, said he was going to ask for the death penalty. And he did. And the cabinet, way back in Ottawa, once informed of this, hastily convened and extended the moratorium until they could make up their minds whether they would or they wouldn't. But I was one of the few journalists in Canada to see a demand for the death penalty made by a prosecution lawyer. And there aren't many who have seen that.
Okay, and we're back. So,
Right. It's interesting, Max. One of the things that we journalists really have to be very vigilant about is we can ourselves get easily suborned by those people that we are investigating, if you like, or commenting upon. That character, the Fats Robertson, the Mr. Mafia Big in British Columbia, Vancouver, is I would have my wife and I would have dinner with him, not regularly, but once in a while. And he had a very beautiful wife. She was English and had been a model. And on the way home, we had a very pleasant evening with him because when you're with these people, they use all their charm and their money and so on and so forth to good effect. And on the way home, I said to my wife, she is lovely, isn't she? And my wife said, yes, like a rattlesnake. She said she's married to this man. She knows exactly what he does. He kills people. He is a mafia through and through. That's the way he thinks. That's the way he behaves. She may be beautiful. She may be charming. She may be great companionship. But don't ever forget, Keith, this is what they do. And indeed, it brought me back to realization is that I'd started to think that this bloke was quite a decent bloke. And it's silly. I shouldn't have allowed myself to get into that state. But we do, because what we see and what we know are two different things. So we're getting a bit of feedback on the sun, are we? And through the window, right? Mafia are mafia. They have decided that they will actually try to go the legit route. Their children don't carry machine guns anymore. They become lawyers and they become advocates of various things. They even become politicians, so they can carry on the family's requests. And we should always be aware of that. Always be aware of that. I was in the police press office, which was attached to the courts, when a lawyer friend of mine came down and said, they're about to send Jerry Trojan to prison for life. And Jerry has said to me, if you're in the building, will you come up and say goodbye to him because he's gone. and I did, and I felt so sorry for Jerry Trojan, and yet he was there.
Why did he go to prison for life?
Because he was a mule, he was a carrier, and the RCMP had managed to spook enough to think that they were about to raid a house in which they got tons and tons and tons of cocaine or heroin, and he was told to get rid of some of it. And so he got a suitcase full of heroin, went out through the front door, went onto the pavement, a few yards down the road, and was arrested with all the cocaine in his possession. So he went to prison. And now cocaine and heroin are dreadful, dreadful drugs. They are merciless in what they do to people. I knew that, and yet there was something inside me said, Jerry has said, will I go up and say cheerio to him before he goes away for life? And I felt the need to do it. We fight our ability to be quite independent in thought with the fact that, hey, they seem to be very decent people. It's one of those things that you have to try very hard to keep on an even keel, because the moment you start to think they're decent people, you don't actually report in any sort of independent way. You start to be biased in their favor, and they count on this. So that tall tale is absolutely true, and the lesson to be learned from it is be very careful about the way that you actually allow yourself to be involved, and that's the way it is. Anyway, you asked me to look inside the mail this morning, and I know one of the things that you're worried about is illegal immigration and what Braverman is doing about it. Is it Braverman or Braverman? Do you know?
As well, Braverman.
Braverman, yeah, Braverman, right? Okay, and strangely enough, is several of my friends and colleagues that I know and respect are now writing the in-depth pieces for the newspapers, and Leo McKinstry is a pal of mine. I haven't seen him for some time now, but he is writing today in the Mail, and the headline is "The good intentions behind our modern slavery laws are being abused to fuel misery and exploitation." And I very quickly took a look through his argument, and what he's saying is, look, the whole idea of trying to legislate modern slavery out of our lives was very commendable, but that the law has now been used by dodgy lawyers to stop people being deported who are here illegally.
Yeah,
and he's quite right.
Human rights lawyers.
Absolutely, and people who, in my opinion, these people, they would say that they're fighting for justice and so on and so forth. Not at all. What they are doing is that they are using the fact that these people have plenty of money with which to pay them, and that they are taking on these cases simply because it adds to their bank account.
Certainly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And Leo says it's dreadful, and it's got to stop. And indeed, it has got to stop. And I understand actually that Braverman is within the next 3 or 4 days says that she hopes that the law will be changed. It is interesting that many of the people who come here are Albanian. Now, I spent a lot of time. Sorry?
Almost. Yeah, it's we've got 600. God, I have to look up so I don't get it wrong, but we have an extremely large amount of Albanians coming over. You know, fleeing that Albanian war that's going on over there.
Yeah.
That's always in the news. The Albanian war.
Well, is the the fact is that Albanians is. I spent 2.5 years living and working in Kosovo, and they are known there as the Albanian Kosovars, as opposed to the Serbian Kosovars. At one time, the majority were still Serbian Kosovars, but now it's Albanian Kosovars. And strangely enough, Kosovo itself is 98% Muslim. It has many, many problems. Let us not pretend otherwise. But what has happened is, I don't know whether people can hear us, but we've frozen, I think, is that the Albanian Kosovars have managed to get their act together when it comes to the discrimination and so on from. Yes, it's just frozen totally on mine, but
Yeah, it is on mine as well. Let me check the audio. Give me a second.
so is the audio still there? No, it's not. So it looks as if we've lost transmission, and I'm rabbiting on for no good effect.
Hang on. Let me switch. Right.
I mean, they are devious people. Generally speaking, those people who are in charge are devious people. I mean, during the war with Serbia, both sides were busy selling human organs, sometimes from people that weren't dead. I mean, there was charges and counter charges. We can be heard, can we? Right. So it's the picture that's frozen.
No, it's not frozen anymore.
It's not. Oh, we're back, are we?
Yeah.
Right. Okay. It's still frozen on my screen, but that's okay. I'm sure that if it's back, it'll start to come good in a moment.
Yeah.
So Albanians, generally speaking, have got a very dodgy reputation. Now, they were for years and years and years sort of two, what I would say, quote successful dictators. One was Hoxha of Albania, and the other was Ceausescu of Romania. They were very, very good at keeping their people away from real life, and vice versa. When I went to I only was in Albania once, and went to Skodra, which is the second city. And the second city in Albania, next to Tirana, had one traffic light in those days, so you could tell how big it was.
Well, can I just say about the Albanians? 1% of all Albanian men have come to this country illegally.
Really?
1% of all Albanian men.
Right.
That's ridiculous.
No, it is.
And that's purely just illegal immigration, not legal.
Yeah.
Good morning.
Good morning, poor people.
Oh, good morning, my darling. How are you?
Good morning, poor people in Akon.
There we are. Our fans and so on and so forth. Max says that we're back. I have to say I'm still
Yeah,
frozen.
so just leave it. It's fine.
Is it right?
Yeah, it's fine.
Yeah. Okay. But Albanians are not in the scheme of things nice people, and there we go. Yeah. Oh, well done, Max. Well done. Yeah. Not nice people, generally speaking, and I can't say that I've ever had a very easy time of it, but I went to a dinner with the Albanian president 5 or 6 years ago. Now, I suppose, yeah, and a very, very small private dinner here in London, and in Kosovo, when you say cheerio, you say tung. So I thought I would let the president know when I left for the evening, having had a very pleasant evening and a very interesting evening. But I said to him, "Tung," and the Albanian interpreter, snotty little man, turned around and said, "In Albania, we do not say tung, we say tungjuchita, which is the long form of cheerio, whereas the short form is like cheers." Perhaps one shouldn't say cheers to a president. I don't know, but nonetheless, he was totally without any humour or the fact that this was a very private dinner. And that I was being colloquial and trying hard to show, I knew a little bit about them. So I'm not very fond of Albanians, to say the least, and not my favourite race. But they are known for managing to be very naughty. And you're saying that 1% of all Albanian males find their way here? And they're generally speaking.
I'm sure they'll come here, integrate perfectly, and there'll be no issues whatsoever.
You think so?
Yeah.
Well,
I'm being sarcastic.
Yes. Have you seen the movie?
Probably not.
Well, it's a fairly violent movie, but it's. Is it Liam Neeson, whose daughter is lifted by Albanian criminals. In fact, I think it is called Lifted or Disappeared or something, and it does fairly accurately describe in France, not here, the. Oh, thank you very much. Yeah. Lena always worries that I don't have enough breakfast. There we go. Oh, she's lovely. Lena is just so lovely. We have some very nice people associated with this television station, believe me, who just come in simply because we're here. But anyway, to say basically, I tend to believe everything I hear about Albanians partly because of a personal experience with them, and partly from the fact that they have a reputation for being rather naughty people.
Well, here's the thing: they come over here and a lot of them, especially the young men, get involved in the county lines. A lot.
Ah, right.
It's a huge problem.
Yeah.
A lot of the county line people are Albanians.
Well, in some ways, Romanians are a bit the same, and I think that part of it is the fact that they were completely cut off from reality. This is the way that they learned to survive, and now they cannot change back to the fact that that they are supposedly a democracy. And a good friend of mine is Lord Latham, Sir David Latham. We worked very hard together to try to do some rule of law work in the Balkans, and we were blocked at every turn. But David did actually get there to try and help reform their legal system as far as the government was concerned. And he said they were very yes, and the moment that he left, they just reverted. And if you've got that sort of attitude, it's very difficult to change them. So yeah, naughty people. How are we doing on time, Max?
10:57. I think we should round off.
I think we should.
There was one story. I guess we'll go for it tomorrow. But there's one story I went to cover which tied into the Albanian thing. I'll briefly mention it as quick as possible. The 300,000 houses plan scrapped. I agree. It should be scrapped because we're constantly building houses over our green spaces. You know, we're running out of space in this country. We're the most densely populated country in Europe besides Monaco, and that's because it's less than a mile wide. Yeah, with the second most densely packed country in Europe. Sorry. Why should we be taking in all these refugees? It's getting ridiculous. We're building all over our green spaces, concreting all of our fields to build car parks and housing estates. Why do we need more houses if we have a declining birth rate? It's not British people buying those houses.
Well, you make a point. I personally, and this was my wife's observation, being a Canadian, she would observe things about our society, and she said, why is there this obsession that everybody should own a house? In fact, in Germany and in France, the great preponderance of people, particularly in the cities, is that they rent.
Yeah, I don't like that. You become subservient to whoever your landlord is. And a lot of people's landlords are the government now.
Well,
You become subservient to the government.
I understand that, but that doesn't necessarily have to follow. It is easy enough to legislate on the basis that most people rent. Yes, you'll always get dodgy landlords, but then again, you know, you buy a house and you can't afford it. Is nobody actually comes around and says, "Oh dear, you can't afford it. You stay there until you can."
I know, but I just don't like the fact that I'm renting from, I'm living in a house given to me by the government. You know, I live in council area. We rely on the government, and it makes you subservient to the government. Because what are you going to do? Say no?
Well, I mean,
I just don't like it. I think it's best if you can buy a house. Obviously, not many people can these days, which is a real shame.
Well,
but it's 11 o'clock now, so.
Okay, it's 11 o'clock. Just one final word, though. You've got to decide if everybody should have a house and to be able to buy a house, then forget your green spaces.
I'm not saying everyone should be able to buy a house. It's just we have a declining birth rate. It's not British people and English people buying these houses, is it? That's the issue I have.
Those are market forces, my dear chap. Market forces. Okay, a good morning's debate. Good morning's discussion. We've had fun. We've tried hard to bring points of view to you. We've tried hard to bring the news to you, and we tried hard to show you the odd program, which gives a point of view or some information, both historically about Lewis and about my own clashes with the mafia. So until tomorrow, you're going to say toodle pip, Max?
All right, bye.
He says goodbye. I say toodle pip. See you tomorrow morning.
All right.
Ta-ra.
See you tomorrow.